today we're going to pencil something in and then ink it to make more of a finished drawing than we've done before. So first, we've got a reference material. We've got a Ferrari F40 because we've been drawing cars the last few episodes. We'll be consistent with this one. And I'm going to take a look at the shape. We've got a straight line on the bottom. Make sure we put it here where the camera can see it. That would be kind of nice. There we go. And then we've got a body line. I'm drawing these lightly because I'm going to erase every single pencil line I draw today. So it honestly doesn't matter if I make mistakes or not because I'm going to erase them anyway. So they need to be light so that I can erase them. The body has this swoopy thing. It's a little bit more angular than some of the other cars we've drawn. This is a late 80s, early 90s car after all. And then there's a trim line that goes all the way across. And then our roof, I think this might be a little bit too high, so I'm going to go right about there. And let's see, the halfway mark is right where that B pillar would be, the edge of the door. That would put the wheel right about here. And this part is about 1/4 of the way, so right about there's this little bulkhead where the A pillar jumps in. And this is a nice little curve, and it goes almost all the way to the back. Unlike most of the muscle cars that I've drawn, this car is a mid-engine, which means you don't really have a really long hood with the engine. The engine's back here, which means you've got a long back and a kind of a short front in comparison. And I'm not sure I like the way this is working out. I'm going to work with it some more. I'm not going to erase anything at this point. I'm going to erase everything later all at once. Oh yeah, this is way too short. I don't like that. So I'll just put another one right here. I'll erase that when everything else gets erased. I'm not going to stop and erase anything. I'm just going to keep drawing and get the shape of this thing. And then we see there's a C pillar that kind of comes in like that, and then there's our window, and then we've got an integral wing built in. This is a little bit long. Let's shorten that a bit. That goes up a bit. Now I've got my major details in. I'm going to start to get my smaller ones, like the actual wheel wells. I'll start to get some rims. I don't care for the Hot Wheels Ultra Hot rim on here, so I'm going to kind of make up a little star. That looks like a nice Ferrari type rim. And how's that look? Is that a little bit too long? I think that's a little bit too long. Let's shorten that up a bit. Wheel looks like it's actually a little bit too far in. So I'm going to make this wheel kind of scoot over here. I am going to have to erase. I didn't want to, but I've messed up that wheel. And I also messed up the rim, and that all has to be redrawn. That looks pretty good. This needs to slope back a bit. And there's some little vents in the back of the back window. And then there's a scoop, which on a Ferrari actually does something. It's just not there to be pretty. It actually inhales either radiator to the engine or oxygen to the engine, one of the two. And then I also know that on a Ferrari there's a couple of vents which aren't modeled on this car, but they are there. I'm not copying this thing. This is just reference. And there's another scoop here. And it looks like I don't quite have enough room for that one. So let's work with this door a little bit. Let's make this wheel well go a little bit further back. But this is overall the shape of the car. I could spend more time and work on this, but for now we're going to stop. And I'm going to ink this in. And I'm going to use a regular old ballpoint pen. We could use some fancy pens for art, or we could use felt tip, we could use marker, we could use all kinds of things, but you could use regular old tools with this. Now it's not going to look as good because ballpoint isn't the best tool in the world, but it will still work. Now I'm drawing a little bit carefully now. I'm not sketching this in, and this is actually the easy part. The hard part was figuring out where all this stuff was going to be. Still haven't decided on that door line. I'm going to split the difference and put it right down there. Kind of curves in like that. So the hard work's been done, and I'm just tracing over the lines that I like. Any lines that I don't like are not going to get inked in, and they'll be erased when all the other lines get erased. One problem starting to happen here with a ballpoint, if you've really built up a lot of pencil here, pencil lead is actually made out of graphite. There hasn't been lead in pencils in 150 years. So no, you can't get lead poisoning from a pencil. There's no lead in it. It's graphite. But graphite is a lubricant, and if it gets built up like this a lot, the friction might not be enough to turn the little ball of the ballpoint pen, and then the ink won't come out. So you may have to go over that a couple of times with the ballpoint. I'm starting to have that trouble with a couple of places where I really had to work with it. I'm going to add that scoop, and I'm going to add this, I think they call that a NACA vent. Not sure what it does, but it's a neat sounding name, so I'm going to go with it. And then I'm going to get my wheels. Notice I don't want, oops, see right there, it didn't want to draw in because it was too heavy. Notice I'm not going all the way around like this with the wheel. I'm kind of starting and drawing up, and I'm going back and drawing up the other way. And for me at least, that seems to be a reliable way to draw a round circle. Let's get this back wheel, and I'm going to get the rim of the wheel, and then the center of the rim and the spokes. Now I could blacken in some really dark areas now, but I don't want to, because I want to erase these lines sometime soon, and if I put a lot of ink down, it's going to take longer to dry. I have to let the ink dry before I erase it. If I don't, it's going to smear the ink all over, and it's going to wreck all the work I've done. There's a little seam right here. Let's take a look at that. Kind of splits the C-pillar. Not sure what it looks like on a full-size Ferrari, but I'm going to kind of guess. So I'm pretty much done with the inking here. I might see some little details I've missed later on, but I am going to erase these lines, but if I do it now, I'm going to smear the ink. For example, let's say I've drawn a little car down here, and I'm going to go and erase it, and I've just smeared the daylights out of that. Or I've put motion blur lines. You could probably use that to an effect. So I'm going to have to wait for a couple of minutes for this thing to dry. So I've given this thing several minutes to dry, and let's try to erase this. Now it might still be wet in some areas, so I don't want to grab an eraser and just go like this over it, because if there's any part that can smear, it will. If I go short like this, it's less likely to smear, and if it does smear, I'll be able to catch it and stop what I'm doing. It also helps if I erase with the line, and then any smears will go right on top of the line. Now if I've given this thing like a day to dry, I could get a big eraser and just go over the whole thing if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. And this is why it's important to draw lightly, because if I ground my pencil into the paper, I would not be able to erase these lines at all. And this is not the best eraser in the world. It's a little smudgy. It's leaving marks on the paper from the eraser itself. So the paper isn't as clean as I'd like it to be. But it is actually working pretty good at erasing these marks. Alright, it looks like there might have been a little bit of smearing on this, but you can see the card's been inked in now, and I could go ahead and I could add color, or I could just leave it the way it is. Yes, there's a smear mark right there. Now if you want a better pen to draw with, there are these V5 Precise ink pens. These are awfully nice for what they cost. I mean, there's a nice solid black line here. It does tend to make little dots here at the end of things. You have to be careful with it, but you can cross-hatch with this, and you can fill in the areas that are solid black, and you can draw fine lines. And these only cost about $1 or $2. So we will work with this further with another lesson. We'll work with cross-hatching, we'll work with filling things in, we'll talk about using markers. But I want to show the basic idea that you can draw with a pencil, make all the mistakes in the world, and still come up with a nice drawing, because we're going to erase everything anyway, and we're only going to ink in the lines that we like.